hear from State Police in about 25 minutes now. At the top of the hour, Shannon Moss messaging us that is going to happen. We are expecting to get the latest from police at that briefing. This, of course, is where we've had several briefings now over the past few days to get the latest information from police. And in this search, we can't underestimate the fact that there were hundreds of police officers across the state that have worked tirelessly.
The last kind of solid number we were given was about 350.
Wow.
Presumably it had only grown over the last 24 hours of how many people were actually searching and actively looking in kind of those multiple locations. Our crews have been in Bowdoin and Monmouth and Lewiston and Lisbon, kind of following that search. You're looking kind of now at a map that's going to kind of zoom into this area that we're talking about tonight. That would be the Lisbon Transfer and Recycling Center, which is where Senator King is saying his body was located tonight.
We can confirm through multiple independent law enforcement sources that Robert Card's body has been found. Multiple independent law enforcement sources confirmed to me just now that his body has been found. One of those sources is trying to get more information from me about where exactly he was found and the nature of that.
Yeah, so Senator Angus King is saying it was at the recycling center there where apparently he worked. That's the source that we have confirmed, as well as those multiple reports from law enforcement personnel tonight.
And this is news, obviously, that is spreading quickly. I know I'm one person, but the number of messages I'm personally receiving about this news just goes to show how closely I think our state has been watching and waiting for this development. Whether it was a capture alive, discovered, or found in this case, as we're learning, has been found dead. But again, in that specific area where there was that question of, okay, police said just this afternoon that they have not had a sight of him since the night of the shooting 48 hours ago now. So there was that mystery question out there of he could be anywhere. And Maine is a large area with a lot of rural wooded areas. So the fact that he was found now in such a close proximity to where the search was, where the shootings happened, is an interesting development tonight.
And that feeling of could be anywhere is such an uneasy feeling for everyone, because it wasn't just looking in Lewiston. As you mentioned earlier, there were several towns and communities. What was it, 530 plus tips that police had received? Yes, so, that feeling of security, hopefully back in the hands of Mainers tonight after a rough few days for us. That, as you mentioned, Brian, we are all connected. We are all one team, and I'm hoping everyone can take a sigh of relief tonight.
So I am now hearing from a different law enforcement source that the location that Senator Angus King is speaking of is correct.
Okay.
The Maine Recycling Corps, as we've mentioned through that map, about 1 mile down Lisbon Street from the boat launch.
Yeah, I actually want to correct that map real quick. There is both the Lisbon transfer station as well as this private recycling company.
Correct.
So just want to clarify there, the Maine Recycling Corporation, and that is what we're talking about, which is different from, I'm just admittedly looking at Google Maps here, the Lisbon City Solid Waste Department. So that Maine Recycling Corporation, we now have confirmed that is where Robert Card worked, and he was found shot there, apparently in the same clothes you just saw in that image of him when he walked into Spare Time that night, and we also have confirmed that he did die by suicide. We just have that in now.
And Zach, you looked at where the boat launch is compared to where Maine Recycling Center is, and how far was that distance again?
That was
1.1
Oh, I'm sorry,
miles.
Chris. 1.1 miles.
1 mile straight down Lisbon Street.
Yeah, so straight down Lisbon Street there.
See what else I can get for you guys.
So again, at this point, we are waiting. In about 22 minutes from now, we anticipate a briefing back at Lewiston City Hall, which is where the hub of information has really been coming from for the last 48 hours. You can see it there in the small box. The podium is set up, and our Alex Haskell, of course, is live tonight. Alex, anything else you can share with us about what you're seeing where you are at this hour?
Yeah, so I'm just starting to take in, kind of where we are, a much different scene than where we were yesterday. If you remember, we were in Bowdoin. It was rural Maine. There were fields and farms all around us. But this is a busy stretch of road here on Lisbon Street, right in front of me here, we have a McDonald's. Across the road here, we have a Walgreens. This is where people come to eat and shop, much different from yesterday. And I will comment on what's behind us here. It is Capitol Ave, which down the road is Maine Recycling, where Robert Card's body was found, and that road is now blocked off. We have 2 law enforcement members behind us and a cruiser blocking off the road. And this stretch here along Lisbon Street is really busy. As it was mentioned, the shelter in place, that has been lifted, so people are back out, and this news is getting around quick. We got here not too long ago, and I think we were the 2nd or 3rd camera crew here, but that is no longer the case, whereas dozens of crews are now here as this news is coming in. But we are along Lisbon Street, and I think it was Chris who mentioned it. I typed it into my phone here, we are a 2-minute car ride from the boat launch, so not too far away from where police were gathered earlier. And I just was turning to see a police cruiser passing us, but they continue to go down the road here on Lisbon Street. So that's the scene right now, much different from yesterday when police were coming down on this home in Bowdoin where they thought Robert Card was staying, but that turned out not to be the case, guys.
And Alex, I don't know if the photographer there can show us more of the scene where you are, to just get a better idea of the sheer number of news crews there and what that street looks like. And while he does so, can you talk to us about what it was like to be there last night when police were surrounding that home on Meadow Road in Bowdoin compared to tonight? I know you also spoke to some neighbors in the area who were probably among the many people, like you said, Hannah, that were really on edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it was Bowdoin, it was rural Maine, and I think at one point there was around 9 law enforcement vehicles. There were 2 armored trucks. One was from New Hampshire State Police. They were all pulled up in front of this home. There were canine crews. There was a helicopter. So many members of law enforcement were focused on this one spot, and that's not the case here. It is pretty quiet, except of the vehicles driving in front of us along Lisbon Street. Yesterday I did chat with some neighbors because they were blocked. The road Meadow Drive in Bowdoin, that was blocked off as police were conducting their operation on this home. I chatted with one gentleman, an older gentleman who was out on a drive with his dog, and they eventually parked waiting for the road to open up to get home, and he was telling me that he knows the Card family. He knows Robert Card's dad, and he was telling me that this family is kind, they're nice, and he was in disbelief that a member of this family could ever do something like this. And I think it's fair to say, we don't all know this family, but we are shocked that something like this could happen here in Maine. And where we're pointing at right now, that is one of the entrances to a Walgreens. Police have that blocked off as well. And that's only because I believe you can enter that way. Adam, my photographer, is panning through. You can go through that parking lot and go to Capitol Ave, where that Maine recycling plant, where Robert Card's body was found. So they had that blocked off as well, just making sure folks can't go down that road. And I think you can start to see the members of other news crews that are starting to show up. And I'm just looking around me. I commented we were in rural Maine yesterday, and we are in a busy town here now tonight. We have McDonald's, we have a Walgreens, we have a Dunkin' Donuts, we have a Domino's Pizza here. This is very different from where we were yesterday, and we are expecting to get more news tonight. We mentioned that there's that press conference in Lewiston at 10 o'clock where some information is going to be shared. Maine State Police, they tweeted out, we encourage you to tune into your local TV stations to watch a live stream and get some more information. You're looking at some members of law enforcement here blocking off Capitol Ave there with the town of Lisbon. Right down that road, that's where the Maine recycling plant is, where Robert Card's body was found.
Thank you, Alex, for that perspective. We'll be coming back to Alex in just a few minutes, who is there in Lisbon at the scene of where Robert Card's body was found. We also have another reporter who just arrived there in Lisbon. Brooke Griffin is joining us. She's been out and really all around that area, similar area in Maine today. Brooke, what can you tell us about what you see?
Yeah, this is an incredibly different scene from what we've seen all day today. This is here at the Lisbon Industrial Park. If you're familiar with the area, it's a Lisbon street and it has the Walgreens. There's a McDonald's to our right now. We sat at this McDonald's for a little bit today. We got food here. It was completely quiet. There were no reporters. There was no law enforcement. It's a completely different scene from about 6 or so hours ago. Now, what we do know so far, again, the Associated Press, along with our own sources here at CENTER Maine, have confirmed that Robert Card has been found dead, supposedly here at this recycling center, Maine, is what it's called, I believe. It's just right down Capitol Avenue, again, near the Walgreens. And again, it's just a very different scene. It's busy here right now. There are a lot of people driving by. Granted, a lot of these people are reporters. These are news crews, but you can see that this Capitol Avenue is completely blocked off. They do have a lot of law enforcement here at this point. They have on armor, they have long guns in their hands. There is a lot going on. Now, if you pan all the way down to this street, this is, again, where the recycling center is. You can see the lights flashing for that law enforcement that's down in that area. This is a lot of police in this area. We've seen state police, we've seen Lisbon police, we've seen, I believe, from other states, their state police as well. Some even going by with lights and sirens at this point. So this is a very, very developing situation. News crews are piling into this area. It is becoming much larger, really by the minute now. We are working to find out exactly how and when this happened. Now, that's going to happen in that presser, hopefully, more than likely. We've heard that people need to tune into this. Maine State Police, like you said, tweeting out, you need to watch. This is something that we're looking to watch just as much as you guys as well. They're sitting at home. A lot of information that'll hopefully come out of that. But again, what we do know so far is that Robert Card has been found dead. We have confirmed that, and a likely scene is here at the Maine Recycling Center in Lisbon. We spent a lot of time here. You've seen us here, but this is a lot different than it has been before. Back to you guys.
And Brooke, I know you were in touch with several local first responders in the area of Bowdoin, Lisbon, the general larger area today. Did they give you any insight about what this search has been like, both from a tactical perspective, but perhaps even as a personal one?
Yeah, so I have been talking to one of the fire chiefs in this area. I don't think he wants to be named at this moment, so I actually don't want to say what town he's from, but it is right here in this area. He actually told me earlier this morning when I asked him for an interview tomorrow for a story, he said, quote, I don't know if it's going to be relevant. There is a lot changing rapidly here today. He told us that they were searching the woods. That was a big area that they were looking at. Of course, last night we also saw that house in Bowdoin that was surrounded for a period of time. There's been a lot of hits and misses so far. I think they said over 530 tips were called in at some point over the past few days. They've researched a lot of those. We've followed a lot of those here in CENTER Maine. We've been trying to keep up with law enforcement to make sure that we're there and bringing you this information. But that chief told me that he really did think that it was going to end today. This is something that he called several hours ago. He couldn't give us a lot of details because he didn't want to jeopardize both the safety of us and the safety of those first responders that were working that scene. So this is something that it looks like it's been in the works for several hours, if not several days. They really closed in on this quick as soon as they found that area.
All right, Brooke. All right, Brooke, thank you so much for your reporting there today. Brooke joining us from one of our sister stations to really help us out and handle this situation with us.
And Brooke is in Lisbon along with Alex Haskell, who we were just talking to. A press conference coming up at City Hall in Lewiston in about 12 minutes now, and we'll be streaming that live as well. But if you're just tuning in, we have confirmed that Robert Card's body has been found in Lisbon. He's reported dead, and that was a death by suicide that we've been able to confirm here tonight. A sigh of relief for so many Mainers who have been, waiting and nervous. A lot of them under shelter in place in Androscoggin and Sagadahoc counties. That now being lifted after 48 hours of this manhunt. We do have Chris Costa and Brian Yacono joining us on the desk. If we're able to include them here, I think Chris is wanting to give an update.
Well, I'm hearing from friends and family of the victims who say they feel like they can breathe again.
Yeah.
And what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
This suspense rather for all
Yeah.
of these days waiting for a resolution to this.
Well, we were talking about this earlier. It's a lot of emotions, different emotions, and
Yeah.
it feels like you can't experience one without having the other. And so it's
Right.
almost like this is some closure they needed to be able to move forward, and they will never be the same, the families of these
no.
victims. But they're able to have this small piece of closure, knowing that they're moving forward in grief and that the person responsible, at least there's an answer.
Well, and I think the moment of relief for the greater public at this point is, even though the shelter in place was technically lifted this afternoon around 5 o'clock, there was still that encouragement from the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety to say, be alert, be aware of your surroundings, because for all they knew, Robert Card was still out there. So I think even for those folks in those communities to know that at least, yes, we always need to be alert. In this instance, there's at least a pause or a brief moment to say, okay, this immediate threat is behind us with this outcome that his body has been found tonight. And again, we're being told by suicide with a gunshot, and not far from where police said they found his car on Wednesday night, which was kind of the last any kind of indication about where he could be or where he was headed. So right in that area.
And also not far from the original scene.
Right.
So about 12 miles, a 20-minute drive from that original scene, spare time. Because remember here, this is the man police say walked into that bowling alley Wednesday night and then moved on to a bar and grill 4 miles away and killed 18 people and injured 13 others. We are just getting a statement from U.S. Senator Susan Collins tonight saying, quote, tonight Mainers can breathe a collective sigh of relief thanks to the brave first responders who worked night and day to find this killer. When President Biden called me this evening to tell me the perpetrator of this heinous attack in Lewiston had been found, we both expressed our profound appreciation for the courage and determination of these brave men and women. And I also want to say that earlier today I spoke to Katie Card, that is the sister-in-law of Robert Card. She was telling me that the family has been cooperating with police as much as they can, and that this has been a tough time for them. Take a listen to some of what she had to say.
Our hearts and prayers go out to all of those involved, and we're doing everything we can to help assist law enforcement. We've been working with them nonstop since this happened. So just that we all hope that he comes forward or he is found, and again, just that we hope that the attention will go towards the victims and their families. Our hearts are broken.
And I know Katie also spoke to NBC News extensively, and maybe she shared some of this with you as well, Zach, but just Robert Card's past mental health struggles and what he was hearing reportedly from Katie, the voices in his head. So I know that since this incident has happened, they had sent countless messages to Robert asking him to do the right thing and turn himself in. Obviously, those messages were going unanswered, but it's great to hear the perspective of his family and get a little context of Robert Card.
Yeah, and I want to be careful about how we talk about this, of course, in the mental health context. But she did say it was a relatively new thing for him. This was not a lifelong situation that the family was dealing with there. So obviously a complicated night of emotions for them as well. But a large sigh of relief across the state tonight as, again, if you are just joining us here on the air, Robert Card found dead after this 3-day manhunt. He was found dead at Maine Recycling Corporation, that, according to Maine Senator Angus King, is the recycling center where he used to work. He died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the same clothes he had on that day Wednesday night when he walked into that bowling alley. We're working to learn more information, and we're expecting to hear from police any moment now.
And we've been seeing this video from Lisbon, where Alex Haskell was. This is from earlier, of course, at this point right now. This is from last night, the search at the home in Bowdoin. But, when we were seeing that video of the Walgreens and the side road closed there, presumably at this point, that is all still closed off because even though they can confirm we found his body, that is likely considered a crime scene in itself, and it needs to be processed, and that takes time as well. So there certainly could be a question of, okay, why are all these police still here? Why is this still such a scene? Because there's a whole part of the investigation that would likely need to happen at this location now. Just as we know, the investigation continues, and we were told by police will likely be a multi-day process at the 2 sites of the shooting in Lewiston, at the bowling alley and at the bar as well, because as we heard today from the briefing, they need to analyze every bullet casing. They need to analyze every scuff mark on the wall. They need to look at all of the evidence on these scenes to really piece together what happened. So presumably they will need to do the same in Lisbon where they are now. This is some of that drone video of the bar scene, which we have commented on. It was difficult to see that the parking lot was still full when we knew that hours before this video was recorded what happened there. And it just represents the people in our community who did not make it home that night and arrived there for what they thought was going to be just an evening of fun.
Yeah, the last time we heard from police around 5 o'clock was when they confirmed the names of all of the victims, the youngest 14 years old.
And I actually spoke to the grandfather of that 14-year-old today. That's what I just came back to the studio with that interview. And I mean, man, was it hard, but kind of speaking to the community, the parking lot. Before we even had that interview, this man lives close to my parents, so we were all out in the street, and one by one, neighbors were coming and gathering and sharing their condolences and giving hugs and being there for one another and showing up in the way that they could. And I think that really just speaks to Maine and what Maine is.
Yeah.
They will show up for you. You have support, you have community. These victims' families who feel probably so alone and isolated right now lean on the state of Maine. Here we're showing their faces now. Earlier today we were able to get photos of all 18 victims.
A couple of things about many of those victims. As the night has gone on, when that news came out, we also again heard from Lewiston Superintendent Jake Langlis that Lucille Vallette had been working for the district for decades as part of the business office, had mentored many people in the district. I'm hearing from more friends and family of the victims who are saying they know somebody who's I'm speaking to a particular person who lost 4 friends in one night. And is telling me they are going to go spend tomorrow with a family member who was in the bowling alley that night and was shot 4 times. And apparently that person's condition is improving, according to this family member.
And that's the other part of the conversation is, these are the 18 neighbors of ours who were murdered this week. 13 people were victims, were direct victims, had injuries. And certainly their stories and their situations, we have a lot to learn about of what they went through and what is ahead for them. And then kind of there are the victims of the others who were there and escaped.
The only other thing I can add is kind of trying to convey the emotions that our community is feeling tonight, is just from the people who are reaching out to me and talking. And one of them is, a law enforcement source saying, many of the things I think we can expect. These have been long days, not much rest, that the stress is very real, that even though this is their job, it is still hard on them. And the message he said to me, and I think it probably goes for everybody, is get some rest, hug your family, and be safe. Doesn't that go for everybody right now?
That it does. Obviously, a big moment to just pause and breathe and realize that in some ways, this is over, while in others it is just beginning. This is, again, it's a live look at Lewiston City Hall. You can see an interpreter there, sign language interpreter, waiting at the podium for police to address the public and explain what happened in the hours. It's only been, it's been about 5 hours now since they last started another press conference where they identified those victims, and we're expecting to hear more about how this all ended. If you're just joining us again, Robert Card, the suspected shooter in that Lewiston mass shooting, found dead in Lisbon.
Not unique to see a sign language interpreter at a press event. What is unique is the tie to what happened here.
Right.
We know that there was a group of deaf younger people who were there bowling. They were there with one of their mentors, one of the people they have presumably learned from, someone that our own Vivian Lee spent a lot of time talking to just 2 months ago, creating a camp, an environment for children who are hard of hearing, who had nowhere else to turn because they were the only person they knew who had a hearing impairment. So direct connection to those members of our communities. For me, I think there is a prominence of seeing the interpreter at these press briefings as well, because that part of our community was so hit hard by this as well.
Absolutely, and we understand that members of that community, family members, loved ones, friends are watching now, and we will be sure as soon as that press conference begins to include the sign language interpreter. Just a reminder to our crews that we want to include the sign language so that information is communicated in the best possible way.
Yeah, and speaking of, we should be going to that press conference any minute now. We do have a crew there, as well as 2 crews in Lisbon right now, gathering as much information as possible, knowing that this is all just happening and just underway. We just got confirmation maybe a half an hour ago that this is happening. So once again, if you are just joining us, just tuning in, as Brian mentioned, word is traveling fast, our phones are ringing, and we're working hard to get you everything we know about the discovery of Robert Card's body in Lisbon.
And part of it going forward, I think, is there are still a lot of questions. There will be a lot of questions. In terms of immediacy, at the briefing this afternoon at 5 o'clock, hunting became prohibited in a number of communities. Lisbon, Monmouth, Bowdoin, I believe.
And Lewiston. Yeah.
So part of the question, I think, tonight will be, will police address that for the start of hunting season tomorrow for Mainers? That's obviously a big industry in our state, and a hit to that community as well, to have a restriction on that. So that's also up in the air right now of whether we'll hear any update on that.
And also, the other kind of emotional aspect that the commissioner had talked about was that if you are in nearby towns and you're hearing gunshots, do not jump to conclusions that it may be involved in this case. Just alone the stress of that, right? Having to think, is this related to that case? That is a big deal. And so to have that ease, I guess, that peace of mind tonight, that whatever you may hear, will be hunting, would hopefully set some minds at ease.
Yeah, and a lot of activities across the state canceled over the weekend. Outside of that, Halloween festivities, Halloween celebrations. Of course, kids haven't been to school in many communities for several days. So it will also be that idea, I think, that you were talking about earlier, that idea of if you walk outside, and even in downtown Portland, it was like the world stood still. That perhaps we can step outside our homes and come together again. We also got word earlier in Lewiston that they're planning a vigil on Sunday. So this, of course, it will be important to their ability to really come together in a way and feel safe on Sunday.
And speaking of people coming together, well, I do just want to mention here, we're getting an update that Governor Mills will be at the upcoming press conference in just a few minutes. We do have a crew there giving us updates on the discovery of Robert Card's body, and we just heard that the governor will be there. Back to what you were saying about the communities in just gathering for that vigil on Sunday, and the ways in which we've seen people come together in, some of the worst times. We highlighted today ways the Lewiston community putting hearts on trees, starting GoFundMe pages for each other, different fundraisers. Even tonight when I was coming back, I passed Longfellow Square, and there's candles set up in the middle with Lewiston written, I think, across pumpkins that were either already there. I believe it was a pumpkin. Don't quote me on that. I was driving by, but it's just nice to see that everyone is feeling the weight of this, because we are so connected here in Maine. And Zach, like you said, we are in Portland, which isn't too far, but you still kind of felt uneasiness as you're walking around, because everyone was taking this, the way it should be, and things were closed, and everyone was at home.
And I think, as humans, we want to be around others in times of a crisis, which is why we so often see a vigil pop up
Right.
when something tragic happens. And that's, I presume, has been part of the challenge for specifically the Lewiston community of they were under this shelter in place.
Right.
So even if folks maybe wanted to gather and get together and have that peace, it was perhaps discouraged by the safety concerns. So I imagine we will start to see more of that in addition to what we're hearing about one being organized for Sunday.
And the comfort that will bring.
Right, of time together.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the families of all of those victims you see there on your screen. The youngest, just 14 years old, Aaron Young, who was bowling with his father, William, at spare time or just-in-time recreation in Lewiston that night when tragedy struck, shots ringing out there. As police say, Robert Card entered that building with an assault weapon and unleashed horror on a night that was supposed to be fun. And I don't want to lose sight of that part of this. When we came on the air that first night, we were saying that these venues are places where people were going after work to let loose a little bit. Some cornhole tournament at Shemenji's and bowling leagues at spare time. So
I did find out about Aaron today from his grandfather that he was passionate about bowling, and his coach was actually Bob Violette, who was also a victim of the shooting. And Bob was able to help Aaron improve his scores in the last few years to a point where he was going to try to join a team in his freshman year of high school, which he had just started.
yeah, Bob and his wife Lucille. Bob was 76, Lucille was 73. This is aerial video from earlier over the bowling alley there. Bob Violet's cousin, John, telling us that he was a strong-willed person who loved his kids, his family. He made sure he always put us first. There was never a doubt that he wouldn't take care of us, and I really don't know what I'm going to do without him. So our hearts are going out to them as they're likely watching this coverage tonight and finding out the news that the man police say killed their loved ones has been found.
So many people here at CENTER Maine are Mainers. We grew up here, we know it, in a variety of departments, and a few of us were talking earlier today because everybody has been here. And these locations where these shootings happened were go-to places.
Yeah.
Didn't matter your generation of what age you are right now. These are places that people are saying, I bowled there. I went there as a teenager with my friends. I had a party there. Or growing up an adult, I went and played pool at the bar. So these are prominent, long-standing establishments in the Lewiston area. Which I think just makes that connection even stronger for so many people. When
Institutions.
Yes, the institutions, and when you can picture yourself having been there
Right.
and imagining what happened Wednesday night is really the part that I think ties so many of us a little closer to the victims and their families of saying, wow, I cannot imagine what's going on in your world right now.
Right.
All right, we're going to turn things over to CENTER Maine's Alex Haskell, who is live on that scene in Lewiston, where we are told Robert Card's body was found. Alex, we will be prepared to interrupt you here if someone goes to the podium, but for now, can you tell us about the scene there?
Exactly, yeah. So right across from the street here, I'll step out of the way so you can get a look yourself. It is Capitol Ave, and it is blocked off right now, but down that road is Maine Recycling, and that's where Robert Card's body was found from a self-inflicted gun wound. I was checking out Google Maps to see just how far this road goes, and it goes down for about another half a mile, then loops back around. So there's a lot of road here that we just can't see. I'm doing my best to look down this road. There's some trees in the way, a Walgreens, but I see at least 2 law enforcement vehicles down there, and it's likely that there are even more down there. And we are along the busy Lisbon street right now, and I was talking about how a little earlier that this is a much different place compared to where we were yesterday. We were in rural Bowdoin, yesterday as law enforcement were coming down on this home where they thought Robert Card might have been at, and that of course wasn't the case. But here we have a McDonald's in front of me, we have the Walgreens I mentioned, we have a Subway, a very different spot. And a little while ago we were talking about the deaf community, and I'd like to add to that conversation. I chatted with a sister whose brother died at Schmenge's. His name is Brian McFarland, and he was a member of the deaf community, and he was there on a night out to play cornhole. A cornhole tournament was happening at the bar and grill, and it was a place, his sister tells me, Brian went every Wednesday with the deaf community, and he was very involved. But I want to toss back to the anchors now.
All right, Alex is there in Lisbon, where the body of Robert Card was found. We are told, according to Senator Angus King, that he was found at Maine Recycling Corporation. They're not far from where Alex was just standing, found in the same clothes he was wearing. The night police say that he opened a fire on a bowling alley, and we are expecting to hear from police on specifics of their investigation in just any moment now.
And again, his body was found within hours of the latest briefing we had from police, where they were being very clear of, they talked a lot today about the dive team that was going to be going into the water, likely tomorrow because they didn't get to it today because of the grid search and how time-consuming that all is. But police were also very clear of saying the sun was dropping quickly for their daylight hours to do that, and how glad they were that the forecast shows us having a sunny morning tomorrow, because that would help in the search in the water there. So it is really quite a huge development that to leave that briefing with kind of the anticipation for all of us that we're in for another full day of searching, and then have this discovery just within a few hours of getting that information.
But it does make you wonder what they did know, because that shelter in place was lifted and even last night in that press conference they were saying that they were combing the body. They were combing the river rather for quote unquote bodies, possibly. This, of course, is a major development, and we're looking forward to hearing more details any moment now.
Yeah, and even kind of giving some fair warning this morning too. Expect Lisbon to be, a very active area throughout the day. So it will be interesting to hear what they know, what they found out. Chris, did you have something?
No, one thing that struck me was when we were reading the statement from Senator Collins, we learned something very significant about this situation, that the president himself knew that the suspect was dead and called Senator Collins to inform her.
Yeah, so here's this part of the statement here.
This is Senator Collins' statement saying, "Tonight, Mainers can breathe a collective sigh of relief thanks to the brave first responders who worked night and day to find this killer. When President Biden called me this evening to tell me that the perpetrator of these heinous attacks in Lewiston had been found, we both expressed our profound appreciation for the courage and determination of these brave men and women." The statement goes on to the families to say, who lost loved ones and those injured by the attack. I know that no words can diminish the shock, pain, and justifiable anger you feel. It is my hope that you will find solace and strength in knowing that you are in the hearts of people throughout Maine and across the nation. I find it interesting that the attention on this case spans far beyond Maine. We've seen that with all the reporting that's been going on, the news crews that have come here, but it rose all the way to the level of the president.
And again, I think part of what made this so unique was the not captured part. So often when we see mass shootings in other parts of the country that we're reporting on, that's the follow-up line. That there was this mass shooting, a suspect is in custody, or a mass shooting, or a suspect is dead. And that was the variable here that really changed the storyline. That got so much attention, and obviously that of the White House. And Governor Mills had told us that she had spoken just in the first night when this happened on Wednesday night, twice with the president. So not surprised, but it is interesting that the White House was so connected to what's going on right in our home.
Yeah. And going back to Lisbon, and I know you were there night one, day one, on the scene there when they had really shut down much of that community. What was that like?
I mean, it was, when we first got there, it was extremely active. There was a heavy police presence there, as to be expected, a chopper that was flying over for hours. And it was right near where his body was found. I mean, we were blocked off. Lisbon Street was blocked off towards, if you were headed towards Lisbon Center, if people are at home are familiar with the area. right by the gas station there on the corner. And then on the other side, it was just about a mile from that gas station and then the next roadblock. So it was kind of included within that blocked off area. And so this really has, since day one, since Robert Card's car was found at that boat launch, it has been an area of focus. And it'll be interesting to hear the new tactics put in place by law enforcement to be able to discover the body of Robert Card this time around.
Right there.
Yeah.
You're seeing a shot right now ahead of the press conference that was slated for 10 o'clock. We're told the governor is going to be attending. And that's one of the city spokespeople right there behind the podium right now. To her left in the black is the American Sign Language interpreter. I'm being told that she is a classmate and co-worker of Joshua Seal.
Wow. And she and Joshua were both interpreters that helped lead us all through the pandemic.
Yeah.
So when we talk about Maine being a big, small town, this is the example of that. I actually was watching in preparation for an 11 o'clock newscast tonight, Vivian Lee's package on Joshua. We had done stories with him in the past on that camp, and got emotional myself as someone who we saw every time Dr. Shah took to the microphone to give us the latest information through the pandemic, and all of the victims, 18 of them there on your screen.
And Joshua is so passionate about helping other people.
There he is right there.
Yeah, this is what we saw so much to help us get through difficult times. He was slated, as Vivian was reporting today, slated to do some sign language for the vice president before all of this happened. So very established individual in that community.
Yeah, and 4 members of the deaf community that are watching tonight and hearing this news. We've heard from some of them thanking us for including the interpreter in the picture on the screen next to the podium, because it's important for them to get that information. So just another reminder to our crews to make sure that we stay wide to include her in this press conference.
So again, we are waiting. We're about 15 minutes now past the anticipated start time of this press briefing. You can only imagine the volume of information that our law enforcement leaders are trying to compile and make succinct before coming and sharing all of the information with us about the discovery of his body tonight, again in Lisbon. Near or at where he previously worked in Lisbon as well. So again, this is the photo you've been looking at now for 48 hours that we've all been looking at, kind of with that request from police to say, if you see anything, call us. If you hear anything, call us. We are getting word, as you can see here, and the governor has taken the podium at Lewiston City Hall.
Thank you very much for coming. Excuse me, coming here on short notice. I stand here tonight to simply report that the Maine State Police have located the body of Robert Card in Lisbon. He is dead. I've called President Biden to inform him about this news. I've informed Senator King, Senator Collins, Representative Kingby, and Representative Golden. Commissioner Sawchuk will describe the circumstances of that discovery in some detail in a few moments. But this discovery is entirely thanks to the hundreds of local, county, state, and federal law enforcement members from all over, and people from other states as well. People who searched tirelessly to arrive at this moment. And on behalf of all Maine people, I want to express my profound gratitude for their unwavering bravery and determination and fortitude, and for the leadership of Lewiston Police Chief St. Where'd he go? Right there, yeah, that guy. Lewiston's Police Chief St. Pierre. Like many people, I'm breathing a sigh of relief tonight knowing that card is no longer a threat to anyone.
To anyone. I know there are some people, many people, who share that sentiment, but I also know that his death may not bring solace to many. But now is the time to heal. And with this search concluded, I know that law enforcement continues to fully investigate all the facts so we can bring what closure we can to the victims and their families. And I ask that all Maine people continue to keep those families and all of the people impacted by this tragedy in their thoughts and prayers. Lewiston is a special place. This isn't us. Lewiston is a great place. It's a close-knit community of fine people, people with a long history, a history of hard work, of persistence, of faith, of opening its big heart to people everywhere. And tonight, the city of Lewiston and the state of Maine begin to move forward on what will be a long and difficult road to healing, but we will heal together. Thank you. And again, my deepest gratitude, gratitude of all the people of the state of Maine, to these wonderful members of law enforcement who came from all over to help us solve this crime and put closure on this investigation. Robert Card is dead. Now I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Sasha.
Thank you very much, Governor. We truly do appreciate all of your support. I think it's incredibly important that the next person that speaks this evening is Lewiston's chief law enforcement champion, and that is Dave St. Pierre. Dave.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Governor, for allowing me this opportunity. Bear with me, please. I certainly did not have much time to prepare a speech here. I want to say to everybody, thank you so much. Our community can now breathe a sigh of relief, as the Governor stated, and I can't echo that enough. Our work, again, is not done here. I was very elated tonight when I got the call from Commissioner Sawchuk advising me of the revelation of what took place and that Mr. Card is deceased and no longer a threat to our community or any other community. I just don't want to forget the families that are grieving and will continue to grieve. I don't want to forget the law enforcement officials that have worked tirelessly throughout this whole event to come to a good conclusion. Our men and women of the Lewiston Police Department, of all of our surrounding agencies. We have with us Chief McGee here from Lisbon, where Mr. Card was found. This is vitally important to all of us that this conclusion came to light tonight. We're gonna grieve for the families that lost loved ones here. Continue to work. We're going to persevere, and we become better people for it in terms of working together as teams. We've learned a lot from some mistakes. We've won a lot of accomplishments this evening. Again, I wasn't really prepared for this on a Friday night at 10:30, but I'm very happy to be here and very happy to say the threat is over. Thank you.
Did you see a reaction from your officers when they got the news of this? Your officers who have been working this case.
Sure. So our officers are being notified now as we speak. Some know, obviously, sooner than others. There are many that are still home. They're home with their families. And I'm quite certain at this point in time, we all know about this. This is something that all of our law enforcement personnel, ours and any surrounding community, has been paying very close attention to in awaiting positive news or good news. And this is by far the best news we've had in quite some time.
Thank you.
Was there any belief at this time that the suspect was dead before finding him, or did this come as a brand new revelation that you never saw coming before this?
So our reality here is that the search has been extensive, it's been thorough, it's been nonstop since the minute we started speaking with you and long before that. So all of these options are on the table, as we knew. We continue to search locations, in some cases multiple times. And we will have more information about exactly how this went down. We're going to have another briefing tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. And I would please encourage you to think about next steps from your end, information that you would find important. I will say that this is not going to be a long Q&A this evening. We wanted to make sure that we got this information out as fast as possible and as responsible as possible. And what I mean by that is that the time between the notification of the press release and now, there wasn't a lot of details there. There wasn't a lot of details there because we wanted to talk to the victims' families. We wanted to say, this is coming. It's important that they heard that information as close to first as anybody else. And you know who else we called? Was the family of the suspect. And they lost a loved one in this scenario. And there were many of that family that was very cooperative with us throughout. So they deserve that phone call. So we had those conversations tonight before joining you here. We also got a chance to spend some time with the brothers and sisters of law enforcement and our public safety partners that have been so incredibly helpful over the last few days, to say the least.
Any other reaction from the family, sir?
So right here, sir.
Where exactly did you find him, and when exactly did you find him?
So at 7:45 this evening is when Mr. Carter was located. I won't give you an exact address. It was near the river along Androscoggin in Lisbon Falls was the actual location. Ma'am, did you have a question?
Body found from the location where you were.
Ma'am, did you have a question?
When do police think he died?
That all remains to be seen, right? So our reality is that we found that body at 7:45 and it's 10:25 now. So there continues to be a lot of work that needs to be done here at the scene with the medical examiner's office. So there's a much more follow-up to what happened. Sir, did you have a question?
Any indication that he had an accomplice, and how was he found?
I won't be able to answer either one of those questions at this point. Accomplices and things of that nature, we've had no indication of that since the very beginning. But as we've talked about before, these next steps are going to gives us an opportunity to do things as fast as we can in the sense that we want to provide closure and information, but also slow things down a little bit because we need to look at video evidence, we need to look at the various pieces of technology that are in play here, in hopes that that gives us some additional information around some of the things that you're going to be
Can you share the reaction from family members, please?
We understand that he was found at the recycling center where he had previously worked. Can you help us understand more? Had you searched previously this recycling center and not found anything? And in addition to that, we understand that possibly he may have recently been fired from this recycling center. Can you answer that?
Yeah, I'm happy to take a look at that information in hopes that I can get that back to you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. That remains to be seen. Again, we have attorney generals that we need to work with and other individuals that are in play here. I'm going to take a couple more questions. Again with the mindset that it's 10 o'clock tonight, and we do want to come back tomorrow morning.
You lifted the shelter in place this afternoon. So why this afternoon were you just looking for remains? Or, how did you make that decision to lift the shelter in place?
Yeah, sure. So I think that that was an ongoing conversation since the minute we actually put that in place. We knew that was an important decision. Certainly from our perspective, it made complete sense to put that order in place immediately based on the violent nature and the traumatic nature of these crimes. And as things progressed over the next few days, since Wednesday to now, we've had a lot of conversations with various town and city leadership, with the governor's office, with Chief St. Pierre, with business owners, with residents, and we have to have that balancing act of pluses and minuses. And we had that initial surge with those communities, and those communities made perfect sense for an order, and as things tended to slow down, we didn't have any immediate threats, we made the decision to back off that. I would also just want to mention this because a fellow commissioner asked me to do this, and I could walk out of here forgetting it, but Commissioner Camuso said that, and passed along, that actually that hunting restriction has been lifted as well. So the resident hunting opportunity for tomorrow is open across the state of Maine to include those 4 communities with a lot of phone calls that she would receive around that. But right here, ma'am?
There are reports that he was found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Can you confirm that?
Yes, I can confirm that. It's an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Commissioner?
Yes. Sorry, I just wanted to follow up.
You searched that area before, as I understand it. Can you explain why he was only found this other time that you searched this area? Just explain that.
I didn't state that we had searched that
No,
area.
we know,
so-
no,
Chief from the
our
Lisbon Police
reporting,
Department,
our
it's your
reporting says that you searched this area before.
Okay.
So just to follow.
I was there yesterday
As
when they were
we have-
searching.
as we have stated in the past, we try to use information that we can confirm one way or the other. So your reporting can say something one way or the other, and that's fine. We can talk about that again tomorrow morning, but I think we're done taking questions for this evening. Thank you very much for your patience.
Commissioner, what was in the suicide note?
Okay, we're all set. We're all done. 10 a.m. tomorrow.
You've been watching the latest briefing there from Lewiston City Hall. We heard from Governor Janet Mills, the head of the commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, confirming what we had learned from Senator Angus King earlier in the night, that Robert Card's body was found. He is dead, as the governor also pointed out, from a suspected self-inflicted gunshot wound, and I imagine that's terminology that is often used because, when someone is found dead, they are taken to the medical examiner's office, and there's an official cause of death determined. But at this point, police say all indications are it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Right, and we know that his body, again, found just barely a mile from where they found his car at that boat launch there in Lisbon, at Maine Recycling Center there, and you can tell kind of a different mood in the room there tonight.
Very different. Absolutely, yeah. And Governor Mills sharing remarks, I'm not sure if we have that sound yet, but basically saying that the state can begin to move forward while we have a long, difficult road, we will heal together. And you can feel the energy in the room. You heard Chief St. Pierre sharing as well that we can breathe a sigh of relief. No longer, Robert Card's no longer a threat to the community or any community.
You could see that relief on their faces, specifically the governor when she took the podium. I thought yesterday morning when she took the podium at 10 a.m., she addressed the fact that her voice was sore. She had been up all night the night before talking, communicating, coordinating all of this. And you could tell she had been up all night, as they all had been. And that look of relief on her face tonight was very noticeable, I think, in the room.
It was, you're right. And actually, I apologize for joining you guys late because I live kind of a ways away, but on my drive in, coming in from Gray, I get on the highway and I had 13 cruisers pass me from Massachusetts. Wow. You could see them all just driving out of state.
They've done their job.
Yeah.
They did what was needed, what we needed of them. As a state in this moment.
Yeah, more than 350 officers was the last number we were told, many of them going home after what has been a grueling 3 days trying to analyze all these scenes, doing that grid search earlier today. You had the search of the home last night, or they surrounded that home last night, I should say, and then searching the river. I do want to listen to the sound from Governor Mills that we have from that press conference just moments ago.
I stand here tonight to simply report that the Maine State Police have located the body of Robert Card in Lisbon. He is dead. I've called President Biden to inform him about this news.
So the governor being in touch with President Biden delivering the news to her and the members of Maine's Congressional delegation as well this evening. We've heard from a number of people sharing that this is a moment to collectively breathe a sigh of relief and begin that long and difficult process to heal.
You heard the commissioner say that there are lots of details about what exactly happened between him taking off, them finding the car, and then them finding him dead, right? We don't know what happened in that time. The investigators are looking into it. A lot of people right now are going to ask us, well, why aren't you saying this? Why aren't you saying that? Because those are details that, as the commissioner said, those are details that they need to communicate to the families if they so choose to hear them. But it's a process of respect from law enforcement to make sure that they're hearing it from them as an official source first, as opposed to something coming from anybody else.
Right, and Commissioner Soschuk said that he actually called the family of Robert Card and told them, and he acknowledged that they themselves are dealing with the loss of someone tonight, so some complicated emotions there. Again, if you're just joining us here on the air, we have learned that the shooter in that Lewiston shooting that killed 18 people, injured 13 others, has been found dead in Lisbon. News Center Maine's Alex Haskell was there on that scene. I'm not sure if Alex is ready to talk to us, but it would be great to get an idea idea of what is going on there. Alex? All right, looks like we don't have Alex's audio right now. We will work on that and get back to him.
We will. Oh, here we go. We have Alex now.
Hey guys, sorry about that. So we are in Lisbon Falls. Right behind me here, that's Capitol Ave, and that's where Maine Recycling is, and that's where Robert Card's body was found. That road is blocked off right now. We have 2 members of law enforcement with Lisbon Police there, and this is a busy area, and we've seen it get busier as the news has gotten out that this is where Robert Card's body has been found. We are right by a McDonald's right in front of me here, and we've seen people take a break from their meals to look out the windows to see what's happening, and it's quite the sight as all news media comes here to check out this site. We've seen a couple vehicles pull out of Capitol Ave and head out, but other than that, there's not too much happening. Another development is that there's a helicopter here, but it's just been circling around. Other than that, it's been pretty quiet here, but it is Capitol Ave behind us on the busy stretch of Lisbon Street. Much different from where we were yesterday in a rural part of Maine in Bowdoin that we've been talking about, there was a home there where law enforcement thought Robert Card's was. Obviously that turned out not to be true. He was here at Maine Recycling where he was found with self-inflicted gun wound, and I typed it into my phone. We are about 2 minutes from a boat launch, and that's where authorities have been spending much of their time getting into the Androscoggin River searching for Robert Card, but I was looking on my phone, and Capitol Ave behind me, it goes down about half a mile, and that's where Maine Recycling is, and it's very close to the Androscoggin River, so all kind of connected here, but that is what's happening here right now, guys.
Alex Haskell live for us there in Lisbon Falls. Thank you, Alex. And he mentioned, the residence that they were at in Bowdoin, police executing search warrants on a couple of residences out there. And we do know, they told us this morning that they found a note in one of those homes. And so you can bet over the coming days, there will probably be more information that we learn as this investigation continues.
Yes, because there are a lot of emotions for not only the families of the victims, but the family of law enforcement, of healthcare professionals, of really everyone in the state tonight. And the question remains why, and I think people are going to be asking that for some time. So if you take a look at this map here, Alex referenced just how close it is. You can see in the center of your screen, that's the Maine Recycling Corporation, the company where Senator Angus King telling us that Card used to work just about a couple minutes drive from where his car, that white Subaru, was found at the boat ramp, and where earlier today they were combing the river for what police had worded as quote-unquote bodies, and didn't find anything there, but ultimately just hours later found Card's body at that recycling center. And also I want to point out not only the proximity to that boat launch, but how far away from the original scene. We're talking about 12 miles away.
You can kind of see too here on the map between Car Found and Maine Recycling Corporation. Police have mentioned there is a walkway, sort of like a walking path along the water there.
I also believe Brooke Griffin is with us. She is also in Lisbon tonight with a kind of a different perspective from where we just saw Alex Haskell. Brooke, what can you share with us about what is happening on your part of the scene tonight?
Yeah, so this area has actually gotten pretty busy. This is right at the McDonald's. I can actually see Alex from where I am now, but we're on the other side. We can show you a little bit further down into that scene. Actually, look, there are some police going in right now. We've seen them with their lights on moving down to that area. That's much, much closer to that scene. We're not exactly right where they supposedly found Robert Card's body around 7:45 this evening. That is a little bit further down, so you can see that there are a lot of police here. There's lights, there's no sirens, there's no really sense of urgency or anything imminent happening right now. That's not been the case in different times throughout the past couple of days. Obviously, last night there in Bowdoin, very imminent. There were Bearcats, there were dozens, if not hundreds, of law enforcement officers at that scene. This one is a little bit different. There's actually another police officer about to come by here. He's been here for a few minutes now at this point. So it's active. There is a lot going on here, but it's not as urgent or as persistent as it has been over the past 48, 50 hours or so. Now, one thing I do want to mention is we're here at the McDonald's on Lisbon Street in Lisbon Falls. Now, there's actually a lot of onlookers that are in this parking lot. I don't know if we can actually turn around at this point. We're gonna try. These are not all news people. These are just random citizens here to look and see what's going on. This is something that has been horrifying for this community. We've shown you it, we're feeling it. We've talked to these people. There's a lot of emotions running as these people are finding out that the person that put such horror on their community is now dead. So there are people here, they've gotten McDonald's, they've gone through the drive-through. They're just standing here watching the media, watching the police. There's helicopter circling overhead right now. One thing I do also want to mention, a lot of strong words made in that presser. Now, we are still waiting to hear the details on how exactly Robert Card was found, where exactly he was found at this point. That's something that we're going to find hopefully at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We actually, as reporters, were told to, quote, have your questions ready whenever we arrive tomorrow morning so that everything is organized and structured. That's been a big thing for those Lewiston and state leaders as of about 10 o'clock this morning. They've been trying to promote structure amongst the chaos that's been going on. But I want to tell you, if you missed the beginning of that press conference, exactly how Governor Janet Mills started that press conference. She started with, quote, Robert Card is dead. They got right to it. That was the information that we've been waiting to hear for days, happening apparently right down the street at that Maine recycling center area that he may have worked at one point. So this is a sigh of relief. A lot of reporters, even whenever I was looking around, it looked like everyone kind of looked around, you know, to see how people were reacting. This is a big deal. It's a much different mood than it was even a few hours ago here in this exact spot whenever I was here earlier. And it's going to be a different spot, I'm sure, developing over the next 12 or so hours.
Griffin, live for us tonight. Thank you, Brooke. And you know, a sigh of relief is something we keep hearing. We've heard it from Senator Susan Collins. We've heard it from Governor Mills. And certainly many people feel that way. But I think a lot of people, too, still just feel this heaviness. We have spoken to family members of some of the victims here tonight. And many of them say they just feel awful. And I think it's going to be a long time of feeling that awful.
That it is. It's just the beginning of a really long process for them. On a good note is that this shelter in place has been lifted. You saw even in the background of both Brooke and Alex's shot that cars were moving, people were milling about, and I mentioned earlier that there are plans for a vigil in Lewiston, and I'm sure that's going to be a really, really tough time for a lot of people to come together in that moment. But usually you see that day of, and I think it's for a lot of people, everyone grieves differently, but is an important part of that process. So that vigil hopefully will be a tiny bit easier given that Robert Card has been found.
And our Jack Mohammed, we know, is live in Lewiston. He's with Lewiston Mayor Carl Shaleen and a Lewiston City Councilor, Jack.
Hey, that's right, Amanda. I am here live outside City Hall, where we just got done with a press conference that, really ultimately ended this long-lasting search over Robert Card, the alleged gunman who reportedly shot and killed 18 people here in Lewiston, set a wave of national media here, sent an absolute tragedy onto our community. Still families working to grieve the loss of those loved ones. It was kicked off by Governor Janet Mills, who then tossed it over to Department of Safety Commissioner Soschuk, and then brought it over to Lewiston Police Department Chief David St. Pierre. Speaking of Lewiston, we do have several city leaders with us. I'm going to bring in City Councilor Scott Harriman, who was there, and also, I believe, just like dozens of families, hundreds of families, thousands of families throughout the state anxiously waiting the outcome of this. When did you find out, and how do you feel now that the suspect was found dead?
Just greatly relieved, really. It's been really a hard couple of days for Lewiston and the surrounding area, and hopefully everyone can sleep a little bit better tonight.
Did you when you were walking through today, this morning, going on to day 2 or 3 of this search now, what was going through your mind? Did you ever feel a sense of hopelessness?
It was getting a little bit that way, where it had been this long. Things I've been hearing on the news are that this is pretty unusual for a manhunt, for it to go on this long. So I was just a little worried that we would never find him, for quite a while, and everyone would have to live on edge. So it's really relieving.
And so Governor Mills opened up her speech talking about how the body of Robert Card was found. Commissioner Soschuk later clarified his body was discovered at 7:45 near the river along the Androscoggin River in Lisbon Falls. Now, Governor Mills said that she hopes that we can begin to move forward on what will be a long and difficult road to healing. For a city councilor, what does that road look like? I know that's a huge question, but what are your thoughts going into the future now of rebuilding?
I think generally just making sure that we remember that we're one big community here, and we all need to help each other out and just be kind in everything that we do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Counselor. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for waiting patiently, as all of you watching at home have been waiting patiently for any updates we have had from law enforcement over the search for the suspected gunman who claimed the lives of 18 people. I want to bring in now, hopefully if he's around, Mayor Carl Shaleen, who has also been patiently waiting, just as we all have. Mayor Shaleen, I'm going to have you step a little bit into the light here and join me. Again, we are bringing you live to News Center Maine, talking about your reaction to what happened. Tell me, what are your thoughts right now heading into after we're hearing this press conference that the body of the suspect was discovered in Lisbon Falls?
Yes, I'm incredibly relieved and incredibly thankful to Lewiston Police, Maine State Police, and all of the other agencies and everyone who worked on this tirelessly over the past few days.
As mayor of the city of Lewiston, what has that feeling been like, knowing that the 10th largest mass shooting in U.S. history has descended upon your town, your city of 40,000 people, these past 55 hours? I can't imagine what that's like as a leader to be thinking of right now.
The violence that happened this past Wednesday was incredibly tragic, but Lewiston is a very strong city. We're resilient, and I had no doubt that we were going to get through this.
Definitely. Mayor, for people watching right now, fear was a way to describe it, at the very least, throughout these last few days here. Now that the body has been found for this suspect, what's your message to people who are watching? Families specifically. We know that one of the victims in this gun violence was a 14-year-old at the bowling alley with his father. Absolute horrific tragedy. What's your message to families watching?
I mean, our city is incredibly broken for the victims and their families, and I'm glad that now we can begin the healing process.
And I'm sure we all are really glad that we could begin this healing process on just this tragedy that's fallen in our community. Is there anything else you want to say to the people watching?
I appreciate everything that the residents of Lewiston have done. It's been incredibly I've been incredibly proud of our city over the past few days and the love that our residents have shown for each other.
Sounds good, Mayor. We appreciate your time. Again, you guys were hearing from Mayor Carl Shaleen from his reaction after we just had a press conference where Governor Mills opened up saying that they did discover the body of the suspected gunman who shot and killed 18 people here in Lewiston. Largest mass shooting of this year, 10th largest mass shooting in the nation's history. Lots of work to pick up the pieces of what's left here, but we do know that a piece of this puzzle has come together tonight, and for those families watching, knowing it's going to be interesting to see their reactions over these next several weeks here, next coming days over what's happened here. But for now, we are still waiting to hear more information, also because police did leave off by saying they hope to host something in the coming days where we could be asking more Q&A about their search efforts leading up to finding the body of Robert Card. Again, he was found around 7:45 this evening along the Androscoggin River in Lisbon Falls. Commissioner Soschuk said he was found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And pretty soon after the next couple of hours, they said that they informed the family members. They also informed the family of Robert Card as well before bringing that information to the media here tonight. Still lots of questions leading up to the search effort, and also lots of concerns and questions about what happens afterward. For now, we're live in Lewiston. We'll throw it back to you guys, Brian and Amanda.
Jack Mulwood live outside Lewiston City Hall tonight, where we did just have that briefing from the governor and law enforcement about the discovery of Robert Card's body tonight, speaking with the mayor and a member of the council there. Also, each of them reflecting on the appreciation of their community and how kind of the decorum of their community has been for the last 24 hours, managing just the shock, I think, and the terror of what happened in their home, and the fear of the unknown that this gunman was out there, not in custody, and then just the need to heal now and move forward and figure out what their community does next.
You know, if you don't feel comfortable answering out, you don't have to. You guys are both from here and not far from Lewiston. What has this been like for you guys to try to do this job here now while the people you know, the places you've worked, those people are grieving?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the opportunity to connect more genuinely with our viewers and that community of having walked those streets and having been in those stores and very familiar with the culture and the life and the energy of Lewiston, Auburn, that is just its own unique part of the state.
I think it's sad to see something like this happen anywhere in the state of Maine, but yeah, there is something about it being your community that it definitely hits a little closer to home. And I think we've all had moments where this has been difficult to report on because this is our home, and it's been difficult to see our neighbors hurting so much.
I'm sorry, you go ahead.
No, I just had to say.
I have a friend from college who is Lewiston native, excuse me. We went to college together in Boston. She ended up moving out to Chicago, then moved back here to Maine to Wyndham, and then just recently in December moved back to Lewiston. So she's back in her hometown for less than a year, and something like this happened. And she just wrote me, I'll pull it up at some point, but she just wrote me a really, kind of difficult text message from earlier in the day of kind of what she was dealing with, this complex combination of emotions between, feeling that sense of community with all the people who are grieving, but also that fear, also that anger, that frustration. This is a very complicated process for everybody, I imagine.
The sense of community you mentioned, and the mayor just spoke a little bit about it as well. Now that this shelter in place has been lifted, that community can finally be together again.
Yes, because there was such an emphasis on please stay home, please stay safe, and I think there's an isolation perhaps with that, of not being able to share in those moments.
There's an added level of fear, I think, with that shelter in place for a lot of people with this.
Of course, and just to reset the scene for you, if we have live pictures of that scene in Lisbon Falls, where the body of Robert Card has been found. He's the man police say walked into Spare Time Bowling Alley in Lewiston on Wednesday night and opened fire before moving on to Shkamendi's Bar and Grill, where he killed 18 people and injured 13 others. His body found at Maine Recycling Corporation, a place we're told that he used to work, in the same clothes he was wearing that evening of the shooting. There's still a lot of questions. Police telling us they've found a note in a home in Bowdoin, obviously the scene not far away from where his car was discovered very early on at that boat ramp in Lisbon. So we are still working to get more information for you. But I want to hear what Governor Mills had to say at the very start of that press conference just a little while ago. All right, looks like we don't have that sound for you just yet.
In the meantime, Zach, you spoke with Robert Card's sister-in-law earlier today, and we know that police called them to let them know that they had lost someone as well in this, but her sense was very much apologetic to the community.
Yeah, that it was, and you could hear it in her voice that this has been a hard time for them. She was saying that they've been trying as hard as they can to cooperate with police. You heard in that press conference that Commissioner Soschuk said the family has been very cooperative throughout the investigation, allowing them to search their properties in Bowdoin, where we saw police swarming that home last night. She admitted that they want this to be over just as much as everyone, and that they want the focus to no longer be on them and on Robert. They want it to be on those victims. Let's listen to what Governor Mills had to say just moments ago.
Again, my deepest gratitude of all the people of the state of Maine, to these wonderful members of law enforcement who came from all over to help us solve this crime and put closure on this investigation. Robert Card is dead.
That was Janet Mills there in that press conference announcing that Robert Card was found dead. She, like many people, sharing sentiments that this, of course, is a big moment in this really, really difficult time.
And now that he has been found, now that that has come to a conclusion, the focus here on the lives lost. You know, these people had really big impacts on their communities. And, you know, we've heard from family members. We heard from the brother of Bill Young today. He and his son Aaron were among those killed at Spare Time Recreation. And frankly, Bill had, you know, Bill was very frank, or the brother was very frank about what he had to say. And at the end of it, we heard him say, may God have mercy on him, because I don't.
And I think that it speaks to the very raw emotion that so many families, but certainly the 18 you see in front of you right here, are going through, including the fact that of those 18, 2 families lost 2 people. We have William and Aaron Young, and Robert and Lucille Violet.
So a father and son?
A father and son, and
a husband and wife.
Died together that night.
Yeah, and Hannah Kumler was actually saying earlier that she spoke to family of the Youngs, and that Bob was actually helping William Young in bowling, and that he loved to bowl, and that he was becoming a better bowler because of him. So those families very much intertwined. I cannot imagine what they're going through tonight, because it's still very difficult. Even though this has happened, they are still deeply, deeply grieving.
And it also speaks to that a number of these individuals who lost their lives were friends. They were together that night. This was not a group of strangers who did not know each other. Many of them likely knew each other, and we specifically know of those few, but they were there together.
We also heard, you know, from the superintendent of schools from Lewiston that Lucy Violet, not only had she worked for the district for more than 52 years, a member of the business office, but she also was a mentor for many from youth bowling, life mentoring, and so much more. And their son Tom works for the Lewiston School District. I guess the point being, right, as you mentioned, these are groups of people who are all connected, they all know each other, and obviously all of them a connection to kids and serving the community.
Our Vivian Lee earlier today spoke with friends and family of Joshua Seal, the man you see here. Let's take a listen to Vivian.
Beloved American Sign Language interpreter who was the voice and face of Maine's deaf community during the pandemic.
We pray for those who were injured.
Because of those abilities, Josh had been tapped for distance interpreting for Vice President Kamala Harris over the past 2 years.
Well, yesterday morning for VP Harris, because we just weren't available. So, and of course, her team completely understood.
Noel Sullivan is the CEO of Pine Tree Society, where Josh served as the Director of Interpreting Services. He led a team that provided interpreting for deaf and hard of hearing Mainers throughout the state, from funerals to medical appointments. Sullivan says Josh had a passion for making a difference for his community.
And Josh did not lead with, I want to be a good manager. He led with, I want to be good for the deaf community. So.
His wife, Elizabeth Seal, posted to Facebook that her husband and father to their 4 children was a fantastic father. Quote, he loved his family and always put them first. This is what he will be always remembered for. Josh is also leaving behind a legacy to help break the isolation for deaf students at an early age. 2 years ago, he helped found Camp Dirigo. The week-long experience held at Pine Tree Camp in Rome brings together deaf youngsters from across the state, where they learn to communicate and trust each other through various activities. A vision he explained to CENTER Maine just this past August.
This opportunity to spend time with, play with, learn sign language from each other is such an amazing experience.
Sullivan says Josh's efforts to make life better for deaf kids will live on, not only in the summer, but possibly in the winter too, teaching kids to ice fish, providing life-changing experiences and friendships they can turn to for the rest of their lives. In Scarborough, Vivian Lee, CENTER Maine.
Wow. And this right here, Go ahead, Chris. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's Governor Janet Mills hugging another interpreter, Reagan Thibodeau. She went to school with some of the victims, as well as Josh Seal being her co-worker. So her getting a hug from Janet Mills tonight. She was one of the people, along with Josh, who helped navigate Maine and Maine's deaf community through the COVID-19 pandemic during the daily briefings with Dr. Nirav Shah.
Yeah, so you often saw them in that split screen with Dr. Shah every single day navigating us through a really tough time for Maine, and you can tell that this is impacting both of them just because of that connection alone.
An emotional few days in that city and the surrounding communities, and it will continue to be an emotional few days beyond.
Yeah, and it goes to that idea, we've said it over and over and over again, Maine being a big small town. We're all connected in one way or another, even just having watched Joshua in those briefings and he helping so many people. And someone who also echoed that sentiment was Lewiston Police Chief St. Pierre earlier in that briefing.
We can now breathe a sigh of relief, as the governor stated, and I can't echo that enough. Our work, again, is not done here. I was very elated tonight when I got the call from Commissioner Sawchuk advising me of the revelation of what took place and that Mr. Card is deceased and no longer a threat to our community.
Chief Dave St. Pierre there with Lewiston PD.
Just to go back to Joshua Seal for a minute, we had reached out to Dr. Nirav Shah to see if he'd like to speak with us about his memories of Josh, but he did tweet. He opted not to speak with anybody on camera, but he did write a message saying, just as you were just saying, Zachary, here's the thing about Maine. It's a small town with very long driveways, and as a result, many Mainers will know someone impacted. One of the victims was my friend and colleague, Josh Seal. He was a fixture at the COVID briefings. He's an ASL interpreter and the literal voice and face of the COVID response for the deaf community in Maine and beyond. He was a consummate professional who helped all of us navigate through a tough period.
Indeed, and so many of these statements are being shared, right, from people all across the state, all across the country. We have members of Maine's Congressional delegation weighing in about what this moment means. Senator King just releasing this statement. Tonight I join my neighbors and friends in a communal sense of relief. We are grateful to law enforcement and first responders for 50 hours of nonstop dedication and determination that brought us this relief. Going on to say it will take a long, long time to process this pain, but Maine people have grit, resolve, and heart, and we will come together through this difficult grieving period and hope for brighter, calmer days. That was Senator Angus King.
And to hear from Congressman Jared Golden, we know he's from that area. We saw him just that briefly at that press conference with the delegation there, and he did have some very poignant words at the podium yesterday, but he also saying, with the news that the murderer responsible for Wednesday's shooting has been found dead, the people of Lewiston and surrounding communities can feel safe that this threat has ended. I know we will all continue to pray for and care for the families who have lost loved ones, for the wounded, and for the survivors who experienced this terrible shooting. This is a time for mourning the loss of life and to honor the memory of each one of these members of our greater community. Also expressing his thanks to all of the agents who responded and to the EMT medical professionals who really came together during this.
And Congressman Golden also making that statement yesterday, again speaking at Lewiston City Hall, saying he will meet any of his peers to have a conversation about legislation and if change is needed in how guns are regulated in our country. And that was a big statement for him to make, that he's saying, I'm at the table now, meet me. And putting it out there to his colleagues.
And a big reversal for him, saying that he will in fact look to ban assault weapons, which he had previously voted against proposals to do just that. So.
We have our Sam Rogers, who is actually, are you in Lewiston? Yeah, it looks like you're in Lewiston. Hi, Sam.
Yeah, hey Amanda, just wanted to kind of give everyone, you back at the studio and everyone at Maine, just kind of peel back behind the scenes of what Jack Mohammed and Derek Thayer, our photographer, experienced inside Lewiston City Hall during that press conference. Jack and I getting out of the car, walking in, 2 city councilors out front. They looked at us both. This was when we had a very good understanding, hearing from our sources that this was an announcement that police found the body of Robert Card. We walked in, they looked at us, gave us a thumbs up and said, we finally got some good news. And that was pretty much the sense of the vibe that we got in the city council chambers. I couldn't get an exact count. It looked like almost all of the Lewiston city councilors, at least the majority of them, were there. Of course, Governor Mills. And it was for the first time we've seen law enforcement and state officials smiling since this all came and started to unwind on Wednesday night. And just to kind of back up, I know Hannah Kumler was saying, as you guys got on the air around 10 o'clock, that we were in the Lisbon Falls area Wednesday night. It was almost 48 hours to that point. When we were right on that stretch of road on Lisbon Street, when we were there, it seems like it's been a surreal, 2+ days. And just to kind of bring things back to City Hall, because we did speak with the Lisbon Chief of Police, Ryan McGee, and we didn't get him on camera or anything, but as we walked by him going into the council chambers, he just said he was relieved. He's so thankful for his officers and all the hard work that they've done. We told him that Jack and I and all of our field crews, all the field crews around the country that are here, we're thankful for them, for their work, not only in the manhunt to find Robert Card, but to keep everyone in the community and in the press safe. And that is kind of another theme here, press still hanging around. I counted at least 13 different crews around City Hall. Again, just such a big sigh of relief. And then just kind of on my phone, as we've been talking, the UMaine system sending out a text alert, alerting everyone in that campus system of the news. I'm sure you guys mentioned, but all of our phones seem to light up and make alarms at once. That was the statewide alert to let everyone know that the suspect had been found. And guys, I know there's a lot of you back at the desk, but again, after being in the field for so long, the adrenaline has been keeping us going. And when that starts to crash down, that's when we look to the next chapter of this story, which is how we as a city in Lewiston, as a community, as a country, kind of get together. And it starts with, of course, consoling the victims, their families, and everybody involved in it. But now it's, I think, a relief. We kept hearing that word that we're on to the next chapter here.
Yeah, and Sam, I want you to stay with us for a little bit. We were just showing aerial footage of the scene in Lisbon Falls where Robert Card's body was found, and you were not far from there, just about a 2-minute drive away at that boat ramp today where police were really honing in their search. Can you talk about kind of what the effort was like there today?
Yeah, Zach. Well, just first, as I'm sure you've mentioned, and in that press conference, the Commissioner of the Public Safety, law enforcement will be kind of continuing that investigation, hopefully getting more details about the circumstances of finding the body, because as you pointed out, not just myself and Jacob Richards today, our photographer, but we had crews in that exact area. Again, we're not talking about a long stretch of road. We've repeated it time and time again, from where Lisbon High School was to where the press staging area was about 2 miles. So think about how many cameras, how many officers, how many other agencies were patrolling and driving by that stretch since Wednesday night. So of course we were in that area. It was very active in the morning. It slowed down in the afternoon and evening. And again, we're hoping to get more information about what led law enforcement to go to this facility around 7:45 and ended up finding the body, because again, there was at least 30 cameras and reporter crews, all the law enforcement in the Lisbon area on the water and boats. We had confirmed that there were 3 dive teams preparing to search the water, helicopters overhead. And again, I was speaking with some folks back at the station when we got back tonight, and that 2-hour stretch from about 10 a.m. to noon, right by that boat launch in Lisbon, that was the busiest time I think that I've experienced in this whole manhunt. And again, it took until 7:45 tonight for law enforcement to find the body.
And Sam, sorry to keep bugging you with questions here, but you have kind of a unique perspective where you are because you have been at every single scene. All of these scenes have been very active since Wednesday night. You've been at each one. Last night you were in Bowdoin with our Alex Haskell, and you kind of gave us a glimpse of just the amount of presence with the reporters and photographers from all over the world at this point coming into Maine. This is a big thing here in Maine, and it's been a little overwhelming, I think, for some of these small communities. Can you speak on that a little?
Yeah, and Amanda, actually I have a perfect anecdote. Full disclosure, my girlfriend is in another city in the country right now, a popular major city. She was at a bar when this press conference was starting and sent a picture. The live stream coverage of this press conference was played at the bar. Again, this was not in New England, this is across the country. That just kind of goes to show the attention that we have seen. And speaking candidly to a couple sources within law enforcement, they did say it was a bit much, of course, because if you think about it, for all the Mainers out there listening, when there's big breaking news in the Portland area, there's 3 television stations. In Bangor, there's also 3. And today, at every scene, at every media gaggle is what we call it in the industry, when a law enforcement officer or a politician walks up and everyone just throws microphones as close to them as possible, it was circled around them. And I think that was a bit, I think on the inside maybe a little overwhelming, but again, credit to our law enforcement and public safety officials for handling all the requests and everything that's going on. Again, as I said a few minutes ago, some crews are starting to pack up now, but if you've ever been inside a city hall or city council chambers, that room is not that big. I couldn't get an exact count on how many cameras were there, but for context, on that podium, if you're looking at the podium shot where the governor led things off, Jack and I were kind of ducking in the front. It was totally packed in, a lot of attention, of course, here in Maine. Mainers wanting to check in on everybody that they know, especially if they know folks in the Lewiston area. But again, the national support for Maine, I think, is something that we've seen, and I know Chris and I have talked about this too, but just the Boston Bruins with the Lewiston Strong jersey hanging up on the glass the other night, the sticker helmets, every professional sports team in the New England area sharing their condolences. I think we're going to start to see maybe some more tributes soon. Again, not just here in Maine as we begin to move forward. We had a shot up earlier. I don't know if you were able to take it, but the light tower, bell tower here at City Hall has been illuminating blue. That Lewiston Strong theme. It may start with just one light bulb, but I think it's going to spread throughout the state and, guys, I think really throughout the country.
Yeah, that it will. And as those national news crews head out, we will be staying here. We will continue to tell this story for as long as it takes and continue to tell the story of those 18 victims.
And that's really kind of where the conversation goes now. We want to share a statement we just received from the family of Max Hathaway. Max was 35 years old. He died at Smenji's Bar and Grill this week. And I just want to share the full statement with you. They say, "We are finding it difficult to find the words to accurately articulate the sudden loss we feel of Max in this tragic and violent crime. Max Hathaway was a beloved husband, son, brother, father, and skilled pool player. He was a fun, loving, and caring friend to so many and truly enjoyed his role as a father to his 2 daughters, 11 and 19 months, another one on the way with his wife, Brenda. Max's family would like to share that he was a goofy, down-to-earth person who loved to make jokes and always had a positive attitude. His greatest loves outside of his family were gaming and playing pool. Max recently was a stay-at-home dad while working on completing his bachelor's degree in business administration at the University of Southern Maine. He had just received his diploma in the mail the day he was killed. His wife Brenda describes him as her best friend and that there is no one else like him and he is irreplaceable in her life and the lives of his daughters. That's the statement tonight from the family of Max Hathaway, who was 35 years old.
And we certainly appreciate these family members opening up to us and sharing more information about their loved ones to us, because our goal here now is to focus on the kind people that we have lost now and what they've done for their communities.
Yeah, not the way they died, but how they lived.
Right, right. I know many of you tuning in right now, typically you'd look for a little more sense of normalcy. We want to bring in Dana Osgood, who does have a look at the forecast for you, just so you can kind of plan for the weekend. And actually, we do know that residents only hunting now open to all residents. It was closed off in Lisbon, Lewiston, Bowdoin areas, but now it is open to the whole state. So we'll go to Dana for some weather.
We're just going to take a quick check of the forecast out there today. It was a very warm day out there, much above at normal temperatures for this time of year. We got to 81 today in Portsmouth, got some 79s out there as well. This isn't usually typical weather for what we would see for almost November, but we are in the warm sector of a storm, so that is going to cause tomorrow to be on the warm side as well. But then we do have a pattern change on the way, which I will detail in just a couple of minutes. Today on the visible satellite imagery, we started out sunnier towards the coast. We've had some clouds lingering in the north over the past couple of days. That's because we've had a warm front just kind of lingering to our north, giving us some showers and some clouds as well. Overall, a mix of sun and clouds over the past couple of days, really. Tomorrow, though, is going to be a bit sunnier, but then, as I said, that pattern change is going to cause a lot of changes in both our temperature and sky condition as well. We had a couple of showers move through the York County area earlier, but those have since dissipated. Still have a couple of showers, again, to our north thanks to that warm front, which is eventually going to push off to our north as the cold front approaches, but that is going to cause some more showers to come in later this weekend. Low temperatures tonight because we are in such a warm area of this system. Low temperatures tonight, more reminiscent of our high temperatures for this time of year, so it's going to be a very warm night, but like I said, changes are on the way, and temperature is going to be one of the main things that we're going to see. Warm today, very warm again tomorrow, could see a couple 80s out there, and then once that front moves through Saturday night, temperatures come crashing